A large crowd gathered at the Nelson Bay Bowling Club last night, calling for a larger police presence on the peninsula. The group voted to call on the state government for 24-hour policing in the Bay, as well as giving the area its own local area command. Police say while a Port Stephens LAC is not possible for now, 2 young recruits from the academy will be deployed at the Bay from the 30th of August.
Young police would understand more of the youth problem and probably be able to, associate with them and start to talk to them. I mean, they're not real criminals, they're just young people with no direction and probably no supervision in their own family lives. Otherwise they wouldn't be down the street here skating around at 2 o'clock in the morning, annoying people and breaking into houses and causing drama in the whole town.
Nelson Bay Station is currently staffed for about 16 hours a day. Locals want a full-time presence. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A noted absentee from training, Todd Lowry, won't play this weekend. His shoulder and groin still a concern, but he's expected back for round 22. George Carmont and Ben Kennedy pushed their case this morning. Both remain a 50-50 chance of starting the match against the Rabbitohs.
They both train pretty well, but we'd probably need to see how they pull up tomorrow, and they also need to get some advice from Neil Halpin, our doctor.
Matt Parsons is also waiting on medical advice. A decision is expected tomorrow. Looking further ahead, the Storm's Kirk Reynoldsson has spoken about his big move to Newcastle next season, claiming it was one of the toughest decisions he ever had to make.
It's something we have to put up with as rugby league players. We do the negotiating for the contracts halfway through the season, and after I signed the contract, I told the boys, I said, fellas, I'm going to Newcastle, and mate, they're all supportive. They understand my position.
A position which could potentially see the man known as the Bushranger play under Queensland's Origin coach. Having Andrew Johns and Danny Badiris as teammates also proved a major selling point.
It was an attraction that I just couldn't put down, mate, as long as with the dollars. Mate, to play with those guys week in, week out is a big honour for me, and I'm looking forward to doing that next year.
That is, of course, injuries aside. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Boeing already employs 130 people at the Williamtown RAF base to maintain and upgrade the FA-18 Hornets. It's also building 6 Wedgetail early warning aircraft which will operate from Williamtown. The company estimates that by the end of 2007 it'll have at least 600 workers, and the news has been welcomed in Newcastle.
With Boeing being able to choose from any number of locations all over the world, it's fantastic that they've chosen the Hunter to quadruple their existing workforce.
The additional Boeing jobs are expected to inject an extra $22 million a year into the Hunter economy, and the prospect of flow-on employment has business leaders excited.
Whenever there's any large contracts that come into a region, you're not just looking at the jobs that will be immediately placed, there's also all the contracts that flow from them, and then if new businesses start up, you have to be able to supply all the resources of a new business. So rather than looking at 900 jobs, this could possibly be looking at more like 2,000.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
And Joey Williams at halfbacks, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, and he's been in great form for them for a number of weeks. Owen Craigie and he are working pretty well together.
With proposals in for the Australian Soccer Association's new National League, face-to-face evaluations began today. Of the 12 consortiums fighting for a spot in the 8-team league, ASA boss John O'Neill began his tour of tenders with Newcastle and was openly impressed.
It's a city that deserves a good football team, and I think this Newcastle United bid is a very, very good bid.
That endorsement, plus the fact United was the sole bidder for one of ASA's preferred locations, would have you think it's as good as done. However, O'Neill wasn't giving any such guarantees, with the Central Coast-based Mariners bid also on his mind, and that worries Con Constantine.
It does, actually. I'll be honest with you, because I think the whole region should only have one, but it's up to the men to make the decision themselves.
It hasn't stopped Constantine from continuing to build a new-look side, but signings can't be made until September 29, when the ASA will say just who's made it.
Once Soccer Australia makes the hard decision, lets us know where we're going, we'll have already a brand name that we're going to relaunch.
The Jets still top that list of new names, but as they wait for clearance to take off, Constantine could take some heart from O'Neill, who left them with a borrowed quote from none other than FIFA boss Sepp Blatter.
It's all part of the renaissance of Australian football, and Newcastle will play a very vital role in that renaissance.
The Hunter Jaegers have felt the effects of a long season in recent weeks, and with 2 rounds remaining, coach Maria Lynch has decided to keep them on their toes. One of 2 changes to the lineup tonight, Katie Walker has been included for a rare starting spot as the coach searches for pace to unsettle the Melbourne side. All smiles at a coaching clinic today. But it will be serious stuff tomorrow at Energy Australia Stadium with Game 2 of the Women's Rugby League State of Origin. Beaten in Game 2, there's plenty to play for the home state.
We've got some tests against the Kiwis end of next month, so not only is the game on the line, but a lot of green and gold jumpers up for grabs as well. So if that's not enough to get you up, well then you shouldn't be playing.
Western Suburbs is hoping to make it 12 successive wins in Newcastle Rugby League on Sunday, while the battle for second place on the ladder is at Carl Oval between Lakes and Wyong. It's equal second versus fourth, which highlights Newcastle and Hunter Rugby tomorrow, with the Waratahs taking on Maitland. Meanwhile, Hamilton has a big ask as they try to turn around their NBN Soccer League form against Premiers Edgeworth. It'll be Olympics' 3rd game in 7 days. It may have been nerves in front of the record crowd, but the Jaegers quickly remedied a slow start out of the blocks with their game plan that was based on speed and attack. Rebecca Chapman nailing her 500th career goal as Hunter drew level 10-all at the first change. It was Wellham, though, who controlled Hunter's scoring, sinking 10 from 10 in the second quarter. The tide was turning on the back of some committed Jaegers defence, while 4 from 4 kept the momentum rolling for the Hunter side. By the end of the third term, the Jaegers led by 3. But how quickly it evaporated, with Sinner Neal keeping everyone on their toes. Wellham's radar working at a remarkable 94%, but the Kestrels made every shot count too. Turnovers at crucial times was the real killer for Hunter. The Melbourne side home by 2.
In just 6 short years, the Hunter Medical Research Institute has been impressive enough to grab the federal government's attention. The May budget landing HMRI the surprise $5 million toward what seemed like a long-term dream of having a $15 million clinical research centre on the John Hunter Hospital campus. While the state government has made a written commitment to match the Commonwealth contribution when needed, confirmation of the money will depend on a review currently underway.
And of course, in that, there will be a place in the sun for the Hunter as well, obviously. It's a critical regional research facility, a centre of excellence in this particular region, which for some types of research has some advantages.
And while no figure is being mentioned, medical researchers hope the Carr government matches Canberra's $5 million.
But I have to do it in a statewide context, but certainly the Hunter will do well.
One funding boost that is expected sooner rather than later is for cancer services provided at Newcastle's Mater Hospital and the Paediatric Oncology Unit at John Hunter as a result of the state's cancer plan.
For example, the Cancer Institute will be funding some special nurse care coordinators for cancer patients. It'll be funding the Director of Cancer Services for the Hunter. It'll be funding lead clinicians for the Hunter. It'll be funding research programs.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
When you walk into the room that will become the auction house this weekend, you can't help but feel you're being looked at. Well, you are, through 240 glass eyes. This is some of taxidermist Gary Barnsley's, shall we say, stuff he needs to make room in his Brisbane home.
I've just got to start getting rid of a little bit of the gear I've got because I've got so much at home. I'm getting to the stage I'm going to start retiring soon, so I thought I'll start spreading it out a little bit now.
Among the items up for bids, a Sumatran tiger involved in the disappearance of 14 natives, a Canadian brown coastal bear killed by a hunter from Maitland with a bow and arrow, and a fiberglass reproduction of a 7-metre shark caught in nets off Western Australia 2 decades ago. There's also a couple of movie stars.
The Mako shark behind us, the free hanging one there, that was in a pilot series for Disney. There's some antlers in this auction out of Crocodile Dundee out of the castle scene.
Not to mention a circus chimp, a reproduction of a 90-year-old Botswana elephant, and an incredibly rare kudu with 3 horns. Sure to be snapped up quick, the beer-swilling cane toad and the hoof bottle opener. Charming, aren't they? But like the stuff or laugh at the stuff, the auction will certainly be a sight this Sunday at P&G Auctions in Wickham. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
It's not too often scientists are thrown bucket loads of money for research, but that's exactly what's happened at the University of Newcastle, which has signed an agreement worth $10 million with Australian biotechnology company Ciron. 9 researchers have spent the past 4 years developing anti-cancer treatments for mice and will now be able to continue their trials on humans using the common cold virus, which has been shown to attack malignant melanoma.
It just so happens that the viruses that we use are very good at infecting the sorts of cells we don't want, which are cancer cells.
Treating the potentially deadly cancer could be as easy as an injection.
Hopefully, within the foreseeable future, we will have some form of therapy whereby physicians, doctors, are able to administer this type of treatment.
It's hoped the use of viruses similar to that in the common cold may eventually be used as an effective treatment for breast, prostate and even ovarian cancers. Colleen West, NBN News.
It contains antibodies that protect against infection. Babies that are breastfed are less likely to get allergies, particularly later in life.
Getting into the rock, we had to use a technique known as a black hole approach, which involves us making a descent purely on instruments to a point on the water.
The drama unfolded at the Benzini jewellery shop inside the Warners Bay Plaza. A young man entered the store and approached salesperson Rosalind England, asking about what else but diamonds.
He came up to the counter, he's looked at all of the rings that we had in the counter. He started to look at single stones. I showed him one stone, I gave him the loop, he looked through the loop, and I said, I'll have the stone back, then he ran.
That's where Peter Pitkin, on a day trip from Dorrigo, came in, exuding all the charm and courage of a Hollywood screen hero.
I was just walking past the jewellery shop and a young fella come running out and bumped me over, and I turned to my girlfriend and said, do you mind if I chase him? And I ran out of the shopping centre and saw him down the street down here and went for a run and caught him in someone's front yard.
Peter's girlfriend proud as punch to be linked to the man of the moment.
Oh, I think it's a bit overrated, really. I'm just here on business, and I'm a businessman, and I know what it's like to be ripped off.
Peter reluctantly accepted a gold anklet for his efforts.
It was her birthday yesterday, so she's got an extra present.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. Lambert the lamb was picked up by council rangers in Newcastle 10 weeks ago. And while he loves hanging out with Buttercup and Sean, the resident sheep at the Newcastle RSPCA shelter, Lambert is getting itchy feet and he's looking for a loving home.
Over the time that he's been here, he's sort of learnt to be a sheep, which is great, out in the paddock and doing the sheepy things. But I think if he went to a new home with a little bit of hand feeding on a daily basis within a week, he's your best mate.
The RSPCA is hoping its new online Adopt-a-Pet database will help animals like Lambert and his mates find homes sooner. Each of the 8 RSPCA shelters, including those in Somersby, Newcastle, Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie, have now posted details of all animals up for adoption on the web.
One of the beauties of the online is that a lot of people who are great animal lovers don't want to come into the shelter. They find it a little bit distressing to come in here and see the animals in the kennels, etc. So they get online and have a look on there.
Animals can even be transferred from shelter to find the right home. Lambert, along with hundreds of cats, dogs, horses, bunnies, goats and even ferrets, are waiting for pet lovers to log on to www.rspca.org.au and fall in love. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The Stockton ferry terminal has it, and come December, so too will the Newcastle terminal. Construction has begun on a new pontoon and ramp at Queen's Wharf to accommodate people who have difficulty boarding the ferry. For 26-year-old Murray Tate, the upgrade will allow him to use a motorised scooter to travel between his home suburb of Stockton and Newcastle.
Go for a ride on the other side.
It's very important because it gives him his own strength and his own ability to make his own way, and he's his own person. So, yeah, he doesn't have to rely on other people to do things for him.
The elderly and those using prams are also expected to benefit, with all stairs being eliminated from the wharf. The service began in the 1850s with a rowboat carrying passengers across for a small fee. It has certainly grown since then, with more than 400,000 people now using it every year. It's expected to take Sydney company Waterway Constructions 3 months to complete the $1.3 million upgrade, which is being jointly funded by the state government and Newcastle City Council. Colleen West, NBN News.
Off the bike, but never far from them, Casey Stoner will soon be in the saddle again, racing in the World 125cc circuit. The mid-season return home only due to a broken collarbone. He's third on the same shoulder in 2 years.
Got a bit of muscle damage around my shoulders, which is still giving me problems, but I'd say I'll be close to 100% by the time I get to Brno.
By the time he reaches the grid, it'll only be 4 weeks since the fall, but that's all he's prepared to give himself rest, given the championship is at stake. Only 6 points off second when he crashed in Germany, Stoner is still fourth, but well off the pace for top spot. That doesn't mean he'll be holding back.
That's what I was doing before the crash, but now I've pretty much just got to go out there and go for the wins and try and get the most points I can each race,
He'll race the final 7 rounds with a fitted shoulder brace and simply ride through the pain.
I'm not looking forward to going over there for a few things, but getting back on the bike I definitely am.
He flies out on Sunday.
The announcement came several weeks ago that the Hunter New England and part of the Mid-North Coast Area Health Services would merge, and due to that amalgamation, the public was also told there would be job losses in administration, but that's as far as they went. Today, Premier Bob Carr reverted to the same party line, talking up the merger.
We're talking to the union about it now, but you understand this is part of our plan to shift resources out of administration to provide extra funding for frontline healthcare.
But when pressed for real figures on the number of administration jobs to be slashed, words didn't flow quite so easily.
Still haven't heard, though, how many administration jobs will be cut.
Well,
it's been several weeks.
Well, that's because we're talking with the union right now. We're talking with the union. There are no immediate plans.
And these were his words of assurance for the staff whose jobs hang in the balance.
I say any job losses will only be in the area of duplication.
During his visit to the Hunter, the Premier announced his government's plan to lure young doctors into regional and rural hospitals. 44 specialist trainee doctor places have been allocated to 5 Hunter hospitals. They'll spend a year in the region, and he's hoping they'll stay to help address the shortage of medically trained staff.
Once they see how attractive the lifestyle is outside inner Sydney, there's a very high chance of them opting to base themselves in a non-metropolitan centre.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Justice Lloyd has backed Great Lakes Shire Council's rejection of the Karua bypass development, finding the proposal would have a social and economic impact. Thornton-based firm GWH Building says while it will abide by the decision, it believes Karua has been denied a $5 million project that offered 65 jobs after Pacific Highway traffic stops flowing through the area.
While most of us were tucked up in the warmth of our beds at 3 o'clock, there were a few early risers in Hamilton, the local Greek community gathering inside their version of the Acropolis to get a larger-than-life view of the opening ceremony. It was a proud moment for the patriotic group as their army of athletes took centre stage.
I feel very proud to be a Greek and I feel very proud for my country.
I mean, I've always been proud of being Greek, but today I feel extra special.
Messages were flowing in from the Olympic City, including a phone call from a family member right at the heart of celebrations.
Fantastic. It's the best feeling ever. Seeing Greece up there, it's amazing.
And just like the Aussies declared in 2000, they've rated this opening ceremony the best in Games history. Colleen West, NBN News.
I think the question still is for the new people coming into the program, the Minister saying that they'll be funded at a level which is not as great as the existing clients.
His smile says it all. Young Kobe Davis can't wait to get moving. Today was a regular check-up at Newcastle's Stewart Centre. His heart walker adjusted and then time for a taste of freedom. The lively 5-year-old has used the walker for the past 3 years and there's no stopping him.
He'll just walk around the house and do his own thing, and just at the shopping centre he just likes to take off by himself, and we've got to chase him. So.
The Spastic Centre conducts regular clinics around the state to adjust the walkers to each child's growing body. 80-year-old Danielle Smith has had quite a spurt since her last check. Careful adjustments are made and she's back up and about, just like other kids.
Because her speech has come on so much and she can have a conversation now, and she needs to be up with the other kids to do that.
Heart walkers have changed the lives of many kids like Danielle and Kobe, who would otherwise be mostly confined to their wheelchairs.
And I think that's really important for their self-esteem as well as their physical development.
The achievements of children with cerebral palsy are being highlighted during this Awareness Week, and they're full of surprises.
The fire at the rented home in Union Street had all the potential for tragedy. The occupant, who doesn't want to be named, her sister and 3 children aged between 2 and 10 years, were in the lounge room oblivious to the fact a bedroom on the other side of a brick wall was engulfed in flames. Passers-by alerted the 5 to the unfolding drama.
We don't even know who those guys were. So I'd just like to say thank you, to those guys, and if it wasn't for them, then we don't want to think about what would have happened.
But it's the above and beyond the call duty of efforts by the fire brigade to rescue the occupant's 4-month-old Staffordshire Cross Collie pup Tyson from the fire-damaged home, and subsequent work by the ambulance service to revive him that has also seen praise heaped on emergency services.
They took him out here on the road and they worked on him for an hour, and they didn't let him go.
We ventilated and resuscitated the puppy, and eventually he come good, and to the point where he was fully conscious, very alert, and the RSPCA ambulance was called. They arrived and took him away for further treatment.
Tyson tonight remains in a serious but stable condition at the RSPCA Ellamore Vale Veterinary Hospital. Police investigators believe a problem with the fireplace and chimney of the Ties Hill home may be responsible for the outbreak. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Save Our Rail members say the report's findings speak loud and clear. Newcastle must retain a rail line into the CBD. The report obtained through Freedom of Information says rail should maintain its prominence in Newcastle as it is the most sustainable form of transport and also the most attractive form of public transport to new users.
It clearly states that cutting the rail will lead to increased reliance on private motor vehicles, increased road congestion, increased delays for people in their cars, people on buses, people on trains.
The report also claims that a cut to rail services and therefore accessibility to the CBD will limit the city's commercial growth. The longer-term development of the Newcastle CBD as the primary retail, commercial and tourist precinct for the region will be compromised.
It will impact negatively on the businesses in Newcastle CBD. It will reduce the revitalisation of the CBD.
The report is also opposed to a Broadmeadow transport interchange. It says a system that requires users to change transport modes reduces the attractiveness of the network, and the lower the perceived accessibility for patrons wanting to visit the CBD, the less they will do so. And although it's taken 10 months for the report to reach the public, the Lower Hunter Transport Working Party denies a cover-up.
We were not aware of its existence. There was no reason why we would try and put it aside.
You got the feeling Brendan Clark enjoyed showing off his own backyard to American counterpart Luke Snyder. In the US, they're big time, but on Clark's family farm outside Morpeth, they're just any other young blokes sharing old times. This is their office now. The rich US professional bull riding circuit, the toughest and richest in the world. Currently ranked 5th with 4 rounds remaining, Clark is within reach of equalling fellow Australian Troy Dunn's effort of winning the title, but also over $1 million US.
I didn't really realise it and think about it too much until, I was coming home on the plane and I thought, well, I can still do it.
3 years ago, aged just 18, Snyder won $250,000 in just 1 week and knows just what Clark faces upon their return.
He has a dang good shot at it this year, winning the $1 million, and heck, he just keeps riding like he does ever since he came over there. He's been kicking butt.
Their short trip home, though, is something of a working holiday. Both leave for Townsville tomorrow for the US-sanctioned event, where there's $40,000 US and pride at stake.
I don't want them to come over and win our money.
No doubt the favour will be returned in America, but they might not be able to stop this cowboy from fulfilling a dream.
It was the wheel deal for the St Catherine's pupils today. Travel to school by disabled taxi, then go about your school day in a wheelchair. The Great Wheelie challenged the idea of Year 8 Sophie McPherson, who has the condition known as cerebral palsy.
So they will know what they feel like.
And the challenge was a learning curve that the college wholeheartedly supported.
I think initially, Gary, many of our kids thought it was a novelty. But really when the orientation started yesterday afternoon, they very quickly realised that this was going to be a hard thing to do.
Within a couple of hours, St Catherine's Wheelies for a Day quickly had an insight into some of the frustrations Sophie will live with for a lifetime.
First 2 periods I was supposed to have sport, and obviously it's hard to get around in a wheelchair playing sport. So yeah, and also Georgia, who else has been in a wheelchair, she couldn't, she got told to sit on the sideline and just watch.
Sophie has now extended her challenge to other school pupils across the region to hold their own wheelchair day, so they can learn about cerebral palsy, a condition that the Spastic Centre now estimates affects an Australian child born every 18 hours. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The Newcastle Basketball Association has an innovation to prove that sport is indeed big business. The Broadmeadow Sports Lodge has been built adjoining the Newcastle Basketball Stadium. It will mean touring teams can stay just metres from the playing venue.
Apart from things like sport and recreation centres, we've not been able to find anything similar to what we've been able to put together here. Unique is a great way to describe it.
Gone are the days of kids camping on the court overnight. The Sports Lodge provides a bed for $27 a night for any sports teams or school groups. When the top floor is completed, the lodge will sleep 140 people. The building was once squash courts, but has been deserted since the earthquake damaged 2 of the walls in 1989. At a cost of nearly $500,000, it's been repaired and given a new life.
4 unused squash courts divided up equals 140 beds. Marvellous idea.
With the lodge expected to help attract more big sporting events to Newcastle, the Basketball Association says it will bring $1.1 million into the Hunter economy per annum. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
If it wasn't for the actions of two neighbours, police say they'd be telling a very different story. The drama unfolded just after midnight in Redmond Street, Islington. Neighbours said they heard cries from a distressed dog and looked outside their window to discover smoke and flames coming from the house. Police say two men managed to prise open a bedroom window but were forced back by smoke. After 3 attempts, they clambered inside and discovered an unconscious woman lying in the hallway. She was dragged to safety and was later taken to hospital with serious burns to her lower body.
We just trained a hose through the window onto what flame that we could see.
The injured woman's dog is lucky to be alive.
And she was laying in the gutter up there, up the street a little bit. And one of the good guys arrived, revived her.
Today, Tia received some well-deserved TLC from fire crews and neighbours. Forensic police and the New South Wales Fire Brigade spent the morning scouring the scene. They believe a faulty power board may be responsible for the blaze. Colleen West, NBN News.
As Wyong took time to find their feet, Lakesfront rower Dan Hagan put his best foot forward in defence and then attack. Fancy footwork from Ian Burke landed his side a second. But the blows really came in back play as both teams got into it. 12-0 up but one man down after Jacob Briggs' effort landed him in the bin. The hits just kept coming though for Wyong. Lakes turning defence into attack, with Justin Seddon able to race the required journey for an 18-0 lead. The Roos needed something, and Troy Pizzette gave them a glimmer of hope before half-time. They continued to claw their way back after the break, breathing life back into a faltering finals campaign. But ever the entertainers, Lakes turned the tables again to secure a 14-point win and remain in the premiership hunt.
With the water temperature hovering around 16 degrees, it's still only the brave few venturing in for a swim. But those who do from now on will be protected by Newcastle Council's professional lifeguards. Adding to the year-round patrols at Nobbies and Bar Beach, patrols began today at Stockton, Newcastle, Dixon Park and Merriweather.
Monday to Saturday it'll be 9am till 5:30pm with Newcastle from 7am to 5:30pm, and on Sunday it'll be 9am to 4pm. So we're back to the summer patrols and look forward to a good summer.
And the old metal tripods that used to hold up the flags are now a thing of the past, with new plastic poles in service after a winter trial.
They're a light model to use. It should be a lot safer for everyone handling them, and I think their presentation is a lot better overall for the beach.
Newcastle Ocean Baths is also patrolled from today, along with the Lambton Pool. Lifeguard services at Merriweather Baths recommence on September the 25th, as do patrols at Lake Macquarie's beaches. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Wearing a specially fitted shoulder brace to protect a collarbone he's broken 3 times in 12 months, Stoner seemed to have few troubles. Starting from 6th on the grid, he raced into 2nd on lap 2 before disaster struck as he chased the race and overall leader, Andrea Dovizioso. Able to walk away unhurt was about the only positive for the youngster, with his Slim Riders Championship hopes also evaporating on the Brno track. It follows his fall in Germany last month that injured his shoulder and does little to help a growing reputation for crashing out. This campaign possibly his last in the category as well, given a push back into the 250cc's looks on the cards next year. In Premier League hockey, wins for the Tigers, Norths and University, while the entrants sewed up second place with 1 round to play by thumping West. The Central Coast side looked to be real premiership threats, with a powerful display netting the first 2 goals, while solid defence kept the visitors out at the other end as they won by 11. And the Newcastle North Stars racked up another win in the National Ice Hockey League at the weekend. While it was round 1 of the State Wave Sailing Series at Barooby Beach at the weekend, conditions didn't allow for the more spectacular manoeuvres, but it was enough for Luke Johnson to win both junior and open men's.
Up until 1996, the Newcastle Wool Exchange was the home of northern New South Wales fleece trading. In recent years, the 120,000 bale, $60 million business used a Newcastle club as its selling centre. But today, wool trading returned to familiar territory when the Australian wool handler's Wickham Wool store began life as the Newcastle Wool Centre.
This is ideal. This is the situation we want. This is really going to push Newcastle into the future. We're bringing growers closer together with buyers, the end user, all on one site.
AWH, owned by Elders and Landmark, had proposed competing against the established Newcastle sale run by the Australian Wool Exchange. However, a recent agreement will now see the 6 sales a year in the city held at the AWH Centre and involve all Newcastle brokers. And Newcastle's new era was watched by the general manager of the Belgium-based International Wool Textile Organisation, who urged all industry participants to work together to secure the future of Australian wool.
That a complete supply chain, we call it from sheep to shop, that everybody is working together and trying to understand what are the needs and the problems of the others.
In the auction room, a 15.2 micron bale of Norton brand wool from Walker led the market, selling for 2,200 cents a kilogram. Gary Blair, NBN News.
As the Knights continue to build the best possible defence for Clint Newton's first ever judiciary appearance, most are resigned to losing the back rower for an extended period.
Without speculating too much on what the outcome will be, I think it's fair to say that we're going to miss him for a few weeks at least.
It's just another saga in a difficult year for the coach, and it gets no easier this weekend. He's still looking for fit players to take on the Bulldogs, and today he named Josh Perry for a return from a hip problem, more out of hope than any certainty.
Probably still, 50-50, but every day it's getting a bit better, so hopefully I'll be right for Friday night.
Like all but two of his teammates, Perry has never missed the finals and is finding that imminent realisation hard to take.
And it looks like we're going to miss out now, so we've just got to dig in the next 2 weeks, and it is all about pride.
Of the side to play the Bulldogs on Friday night, there are several others who also have to prove their fitness, including Adam Woolnough, Andrew Price and Matt Parsons. As for that investigation into the club's high injury toll, the report will be tabled to the Knights board tomorrow night. The club has already implemented one of the recommendations, with the rest expected to be rubber-stamped as they look for ways to better avoid and rehabilitate injuries. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The teenager made his first appearance in Maitland Children's Court today over the fire at West Cessnock Public and faced an additional charge that he lit a grass fire just a fortnight ago. Magistrate Elaine Truscott remanded the boy in custody to undergo a series of medical tests. His co-accused over the school fire, a 12-year-old boy, had his bail continued.